listenership.
Welcome to this week's edition of Community Conversations. I'm Roger Wood, your host, and our guest for this segment is Steve Newvine, and he's a local author, but he's going to be like a reporter today because he's going to give us an update on a recently held big event in the Valley. Steve, welcome to our show.
Well, thank you, Roger, and good morning to you and everyone in the audience. I guess I should start a little by giving some background about me. I grew up in upstate New York on a very small town, and my uncle had a dairy farm, so many summers and just about any time around the year, there was always something to do at the farm. So I'd go up there with my cousins, and we would play around, do some chores, do whatever was needed. So I've always had this agriculture foundation, I guess, in my growing up. Then I graduated high school, went to college, community college first, and then got my bachelor's degree at Syracuse University. Became a television journalist for about 15 years, and then became a Chamber of Commerce executive for another 15 years, and then spent the remainder of my working life working for a public utility and managing government partnerships throughout the Central Valley. And when I retired 2 years ago, I just went back to what I love doing, and that is writing. I've been writing for a number of years, written about 10 books. I do a twice-monthly column now for MercedCountyEvents.com. So once again, the Ag Expo, World Ag Expo, is coming up, and I kind of remembered coming to California in February of 2004, and I flew into the Fresno Yosemite airport, and I saw signs welcoming attendees to this World Ag Expo. And I was just taking a job in Fresno at the time, and I was asking people, what's this thing all about? And basically they told me this is something you really want to see. So it took me about 2 years before I could finally see it. In 2006, I saw the first World Ag Expo for me, and it was pretty amazing. You've heard some of the facts sprinkled out over the years. Over 100,000 people attend for over the 3-day run of the show. It's usually this first full week in February, and attendees come from practically every state in the union, and more than 50 countries are represented. It has a $50 million economic impact to Tulare and surrounding counties, and that's judged by measuring hotel nights and miscellaneous retail, restaurants, that kind of thing, and the impact is amazing. But what was more amazing was that last year, 2021, the show was held online because COVID restrictions kept the event from being held in person. So it was kind of a setback for all the nonprofits that are down there that do the food stands. It was a setback for the retailers who come out there and spend money to put their booths in place, and certainly when you lose 100,000 visitors to a venue, that definitely has an impact on the economy. But they're back this year. They were back for this past week, and I went out there early in the week and wrote an article for my writing home, which I mentioned earlier is MercedCountyEvents.com. And I also wrote a piece that was on the op-ed pages of the Merced County Times this week. And I even did a radio report for a radio station in Western New York, one of the stations I used to listen to when I was working there many years ago. I just sent them a message and said, hey, I can do this. They do a lot of ag programming there, and they welcome that as well. So it was nice to be able to report from the scene. The World Ag Expo prides itself on attracting the business owners to the venue for the purpose of buying goods and services and networking with other farmers and continuing education about the latest in food production. Some attendees attend for the research, and others are seeking international trade. There's just a little bit of something for everyone there. But whatever the reason this year, it was just, you could sense talking to the people who were there that being back in person was a good thing, and they welcomed them back. A lot of the vendors were telling me that it's typical with trade shows that it's really necessary to have that face-to-face contact with the customer. And while buying decisions generally don't happen on the spot, as a result of these face-to-face encounters, it's always good to be able to put a person with the product, so that when the time comes to make a sale, there has been that connection. And some are even questioning now that COVID took a lot of these trade shows off the calendar for well over a year. Are trade shows even necessary anymore with everything we have, the technology to see things without having to go in person? But by and large, all the vendors I spoke to were happy to be back, and they didn't want to give up on trade shows. And certainly by looking at the attendance numbers, it was another success. The Tuesday attendance was off slightly from the same day 2 years ago, but the organizers were not concerned about that. They knew the rest of the week would turn out well. And we don't have a final number yet on attendees, but I'm sure it will be close to that 100,000 that they had 2 years ago. And it was really a fun thing for me to see, and some of the technology was just amazing. There's a lot of electric powered tractors now that our growers are looking at, autonomous spraying systems for orchards. And they had demonstrations of some of these products out there. So it was kind of fascinating to watch, a sprayer weaving around this miniature orchard and doing its job. So there was a lot of things like that, automated milking systems for dairies, and there was a lot of interest in that. I saw at least 2 of those being demonstrated when I was down there. And overall, it was just a good way to kind of reconnect the agricultural producer with the people who provide the services and the products, the technology that is going to take them to the next level in raising the crops that we have all grown to depend on here in the Central Valley.
Well, the weather must have been about record-setting weather.
I think that was a big advantage this year, because had there been a bad day weather-wise, that would have certainly impacted attendance. And so even though they had that slower than expected start on Tuesday, everybody knew this weather was going to stay this way all week. It was going to be a great day to get out there, whether you go one day or all 3 days. And I think that's kind of what people were expecting, that it would be a successful event. And it seems like that is a key factor, although, it's so cold in the mornings now. You just kind of like, gee, is it even going to be that warm today? And then, we turn out and we have these 70-degree days that are just fantastic in February.
Well, it sounds like that was a great experience again for you, Steve. Well, Steve, if people want to get more information about you, how can they do that?
Well, I tell you, the best way to reach me is through the MercedCountyEvents.com website, my column called Our Community Story. My books are all available on my publishing website is lulu.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve Newvine, a local author from Merced County.
Thank you.
KYOS Merced.